Good afternoon. My name is Logan Johns. I'm a current junior journalism major, African studies minor from Washington, D.C., by way of Kingston, Jamaica. Today, we're delving into a powerful intersection of faith, politics, and communities Black churches nationwide mobilize for the 2024 election. Here in Washington, D.C., this movement is especially impactful with Black churches serving as long-standing pillars for advocacy and social justice in their communities. In this story, we'll hear from the Reverend Dr. Winston Ridley Jr. of the Greater Baptist Church in Mount Pleasant Plains in Northwest D.C. Ridley is a highly favored, influential pastor who is guiding his congregation through this pivotal moment. He shares his unique perspective on how faith and civic responsibility come together in this election and how Kamala Harris, the first Black woman to lead a presidential ticket, resonates with congregations. Pastor Ridley brings his own voice and insights to this moment. For Ridley, the call to vote is not just a civic duty, it is a personal mission deeply rooted in faith. Through his leadership, he has encouraged his congregation to see voting as an act of service, justice, aligned with the core values preached from their pupils. Ridley helps us understand the powerful role of faith in this election season, what the Black church brings to this election process in general, fear of Kamala Harris in parts of the American electorate, his opinion of God's message if Donald Trump wins the 2024 presidential election, and Kamala Harris's conviction that we are not to go back. We are not going back. For this pastor, championing the dignity and the rights of the community he serves through civic engagement is as central to his mission as a Sunday sermon.
What kind of impact do you guys think you guys bring to the table in terms of this election? And I guess
go ahead.
Go ahead.
One of the most powerful things that the church brings in general is the power of prayer, and our connection to God gives us inroads to giving us revelation and direction. And also inspiration has always been a God that's been involved in history and all the things that are happening in our world, whether directly or indirectly, whether he's offering it or allowing it. I believe that God is involved in this whole process because of how there's so much misinformation and so much disillusionment among people that there are people who have pretty much given up and feel as if what Trump is offering is a better alternative than what Kamala Harris is offering. Of course, I disagree with that totally. I don't believe that what Trump is offering us is really the better outcome or the better thing for our country. I just don't believe
We're seeing a lot of people who say they don't understand people who want to vote for Kamala. We're seeing people who don't understand Democrats and their way of thinking. Do you think that people fear Kamala Harris? And
do they fear Kamala Harris?
Do you think they fear Kamala Harris or fear the idea of not having a Republican as president?
I think that people are afraid of a major change and shift that is upon us.
Of course.
A major change and shift that other countries, other nations have already made in regard to having a woman in that position in the White House as president. I think that there's a gender issue in our country that's long-standing. It's a part of our culture, our makeup, and everything else. And that culture and makeup has found its place in many different places. The church, the community, and our nation. And then she's a woman of color on
right.
top of that. Makes it even more it's a drastic shift from what has been to what she would represent. It's not just her. It's what she represents that for some people makes them afraid. When President Obama became the president, what he represented by virtue of his person and his personality had ever experienced before. And initially, there was a euphoria of this happening, but then the old fears began to rise up again, and people began to want to go back to what it used to be like before the Obama years, etc. And I believe the same thing is happening again with this election with Trump and Vice President Harris. Let's make America great again. And in other words, let's go back to the quote unquote good old days. And really, that's a loaded expression that has a whole lot of meaning and different meanings for different people, depending upon what the good old days were like for you. The good old days were not good old days for us as African Americans. The good old days, not all of them were good old days back then in the way that they were before a lot of what we are experiencing now, were happening. And if you listen to Vice President Harris's slogan, we're not going back. We're not going back. So it's like it's a powerful expression of contrast that are being presented in this election, and what each of these leaders represent in regard to their style of leadership, and that's not by any accident. And each one of them recognizes how powerful that contrast actually is.
If Donald Trump were to win, what's God's message? Or what do you think God will be giving us?
What God's message is, what he says in the scriptures. He says, my ways are not your ways.
Right.
And my thoughts are not your thoughts.
Right.
As high as the heaven is above the earth, so are my ways above your ways, and my thoughts above your thoughts. See, the way we think is that, again, I said before, we think in terms of the short term, but God is always in the long game. He's always dealing with the things that are much further down the line, sometimes beyond, many years beyond where we are right now. But I believe that his focus is accomplishing his will and bringing our world to a place of our recognition of our need of God, of need of Him.
Right.
And because we feel like we can handle things on our own once that we get what we want. Sometimes that's why it's withheld from us, because he realizes that it really does lengthen the time that actually he wants to do some things, because we're only thinking about it in terms of the short term. The mysterious ways are that what seems to be a defeat can be a victory. What seems to be a failure can be a success. What seems to be a negative, God can work as a positive.
Of course.
And with that, at the end of the day, the Lord our God receives the glory, because it's not being done by our power or our might or according to our will, but according to His. And at the end of the day, since He's working it together for our good, even the negatives and even the hard things, and even the things we don't like, He caused them to be beneficial to us. Faith is a thing that's very personal, and people's faith in God and how they express that is very personal to them. And I think that's something, I know it's by design, that each person has to come to grips with their own expression and confession of faith.
As we reflect the insights shared by the Reverend Dr. Winston Ridley, it becomes clear that the intersection of faith, politics, and community is more than a backdrop for this election. It is an essential force shaping the future of America's democracy. The mobilization of Black churches across the nation underscores their enduring role as advocates for social justice and participation in all aspects of our democracy. Pastor Ridley's emphasis on voting as a spiritual duty serves as a powerful reminder of the responsibility we all share in this democratic process. His vision for a future defined by empowerment and resilience resonates deeply, especially in a time when the stakes are higher than ever. As we approach the 2024 election, the voices of Black faith leaders like Ridley will be crucial in motivating communities to make their voices heard. And at this pivotal moment, the call to action is clear. We must honor the legacy of those who fought for our rights and ensure that every voice is heard and valued. The Black church, with its rich history of advocacy and resilience, continues to be a beacon of hope and a catalyst for change. As we move forward, let us carry the lessons learned from the conversation into our own communities, fostering a spirit of unity and purpose that transcends the ballot box. The future is ours to shape, and it begins with each of us taking a stand. I'm Logan Johns, and as always, thank you for listening.